Truth be told, when I wonder what the future holds, it takes me out of the present. New moon waxing, full moon waning, crescent. Life cycles, teammates or rivals. Soul search, dangerous World War III, the goal's always survival. That's nature, day you're born when you meet your maker. Tears start chasing paper, burning trees or melting glaciers. But truth be told, when I wonder what the future holds, it's impossible to process, so I stay focused on my progress.
Welcome. We're here, and I'm in the middle. People, yes, it's me. After all the talk last week from a certain someone, I'm back.
Well done.
That's for later on. But welcome, guys. Before we start, obviously, let's just chill.
You're hosting though. Go on.
Yeah. Chill, Winston. But anyway, before we get into it, like always, please like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. But listen, fellas, Hots, Mr. Big Mouth, talk to me. What's going
on? Regards to FPL, it was a very, very bad week. Hence me not being in the greatest of moods when it comes to FPL. Probably below the average score, I think, of the game week. It's hard to explain on what single thing went wrong because my whole team really didn't perform. It was literally just Arsenal. Just one of those weeks. I am where I am in the league. I was out of the millions into the thousands. So I've dropped back into the 1 mils. So yeah, hoping for a better week next week. That's about it.
And Ark. It's good. How's your week?
Yeah, it was an okay week. Realistically, when looking at it and now that the dust has settled, it just is one of those ones where there's a couple of decisions made incorrect and you pay for it kind of thing. Really, it's just a variance of the week. As we all took the impact of Pedro scoring a hat-trick. Whether you had him, then clearly your rank jumped. And if you didn't, it had an effect. And it had one of those effects where even if your captain wasn't the right choice, if you had Pedro, you would have done okay. But it's a kick in the teeth for me, more from a point of view of the strategy that I'm on at the moment. So it makes an already impossible target quite impossible. So we'll see how we get on.
Yeah, I mean, I had João Pedro. I mean, I'll come to that later on. But obviously, as we gear up to game week 30, and we sort of closing to the end, the blank game week and also the doubles are coming into sharp focus. So most of the sort of shows will kind of be focused around those sort of chips going forward. But before we get into that, let's have a look at our teams. And back to you, Mr. Hots. You were bottom. So yeah, let's go for your team, shall we?
Let's do this. What are you smiling at?
Just a happy
Yeah, all jokes aside, yeah, as I said, it was a poor week. I think Ark touched on it when the sense of Pedro was sort of like the star of the week. He got that hat trick. He's been a bit of a thorn in my side, if I'm honest. Literally, Rayo and Gabriel done their thing for me, but apart from that, everyone else flopped. And when you only got 2 players performing for you, you're going to get a low ranking that week. You know, it's just after a decent week where, you know, I gained some points. But yeah, it's one of those weeks where no one's captain really did anything, but my team as a whole just didn't perform. And if it wasn't for Gabriel, it would have been a lot worse. Not much really to say. I'm content. I got over it. It's, you know, it was a long game week with FA Cups, etc. So it's not like it's hurting still now.
Not raw.
But, yeah. But obviously it's given Guffs the opportunity, having Pedro to get into the middle and then talk his game. So, you know, salute to you. You're in the middle this game week. Just getting closer, I guess. Don't know how close that close really is. But yeah, you're in the middle because you got the most points this week. So
So that was a counter, yeah? A little
you
overhand.
You see that? Yeah, you hear that, yeah?
has to be.
Overhand.
Not that close, he really is. No worry.
Yeah, well, I can only speak facts, right? You done your thing this week, so yeah, man.
The Black Rafa. Fair play.
Yeah, okay. How's your team? I mean, you didn't do too bad this week. I think you actually did get a decent captain this week, didn't you? From what I saw. But
yeah, my captain was all right. Was Semenyo. The real issues that I had were hesitation on my part, really. So when we had the double, obviously we talked through the reason why I made certain moves. So I had Gyökeres in, and I always had a plan for what I was going to do with Madueke, what I was going to do with Gyökeres and Son. Gyökeres I held on for a week longer, and that's more because of the variance of him scoring 2, as well as the fact that Palace had an issue in their game, which meant that their defender wasn't going to play. So I thought, let's get rid of Munoz, because he's not going to be available in 31 anyway. So I'll bring in Van Dijk. The issue for me was that Gyökeres then provided me with nothing. My whole front line provided nothing, Haaland included, which is another pain point in itself. But I guess that's more a City changing the way they play type scenario. As we've seen that with Haaland over the past 6 to 8 game weeks has not been his self. But like I say, that's more because they've started playing in a more vertical way. At the back, I didn't do as well as I needed to. So Senesi got me a lot. He was probably my star of the week, per se. Semenyo, he got me decent points from a captaincy point of view. If I didn't have a Pedro, that kind of thing. And Bruno did what Bruno does, right? Especially when there's variance in his game. But outside of that, quite disappointing with a number of the players within the squad. And I suppose what really happened was I got hit for not having too much of a template team. So my team is quite differential if you look at the template of, say, the top 10,000 or whatever not. So you can always have this kind of week. The issue for me is that I have a target in terms of what I was going for. And now instead of me being able to target, say, 5 to 7 points on a weekly basis, that's now jumped up to I'd need to target 22 points a week in order for me to get to where I would ideally want to be at the end of all of this. So we'll have to see what happens if I miss the moon. Hopefully land on some stars.
Oh, like jumping bars now, yeah? But
always, forever. Amen.
Look, I am happy about the game week, obviously, but I'm a little bit concerned at the same time. And I say that because if it wasn't for Pedro, I would have had an absolutely awful week. And I'm looking at the sort of the spread of points across my actual team. It's not great. And it hasn't been for the last few game weeks. And I've been saved by having the right captain choices in previous weeks. And this week, obviously, Pedro pulled me through and got me good total points. But Semenyo is the one that's been hurting me for the last few weeks. And obviously now they've got a blank game coming up. It's pointless putting in my team now. But that gamble didn't work out for me. Albeit, this is a good game for me this week. This week, I too had Gabriel, which done well for me. I went with Rodgers as captain, like I said I would. Hot stared me, and I stuck with Rodgers, and it didn't pay off. And that actually ended up hurting me because obviously Bruno, who was my captain choice, I said last on the show, got the 8 points. So, that's how it goes sometimes. But you win some, lose some. But overall, I can't complain. I got above the average. I made some gains. But like you, probably more severe for me, really. I need to make, huge leaps to kind of even get anywhere near sort of the million and above. My target...
You wouldn't have guessed if you're opening.
Listen, listen, you're quiet, I'm talking, yeah? Remember this buzz up last week? All right.
No problem. Right. Just throw that reminder right there for you.
Listen, I'll tell you when you can speak, yeah? It ain't yet. So anyway.
Cool, but I just did anyway. But
but jokes aside, I mean, I think my target right now is to try to get below $1 million. That's really, my sort of like the target ahead of me right now. I've been floating around the sort of 3 million for a long, long time now. If I can kind of get below a million, then it's probably the best I could really ask for at this point. But I need some real swings to go my way in the next few weeks. Yeah, it is what it is. Good game week. We move on. So, yeah, like I said at the beginning of the show, we are now in a home run for the FPL League. And as we sort of saunter along to the finishing line, I guess people are now getting their teams in shape, trying to think about wildcards. I haven't got mine. You got yours, obviously, guys. Thinking about how we sort of negotiate blank game weeks, thinking about who's in the FA Cup, who's not, what sort of doubles are going to be kind of coming ahead. So with that in mind, I thought that it'd be good to sort of talk about team and sort of how we put our team together and how we sort of value. And I guess a starting point I want to sort of speak to you guys about is when is sort of paying extra sort of the value play. So, you know, we look at obviously players.
Extra?
Well, I think we look at players in tiers, right? We look at players in terms of cheap players, mid-range, expensive. I've been playing the game mainly trying to find a value in that sort of middle range players, the 7.5s to 8s. But when is sort of going big and maybe structuring your team in a way which you're going for the high value players, when is that the value play? Is there a time to sort of go that route? Is it sort of the right time to sort of bring in the likes of Salahs and the Cole Palmers? I mean, how do you sort of approach this period thinking about value and in a particular sort of those high sort of ticket players that are in the game? And I think I'll start with you, Ark. I mean, because I know you're someone that kind of looks at stats and obviously thinks about these things. So what's your thoughts?
To be honest, usually I would be thinking about, well, how do you pivot to some of the stores of FPL? However, this season has thrown up many differences in terms of the types of player that are really doing well. So, for instance, there are many players that are in that 5 to 6.5 million bracket at the moment that are doing better than a lot of the premium players of like 8 or 9 million. It's a scenario where actually we're at that point of the season where we should be looking at players who are about to pop per se, or people that are underperforming against their XGI. But we can see that the volume for their creativity or for their shots, etc., that kind of thing is there. The problem that you've got with any of the stalwarts at the moment is they're all still involved in Europe. They're all further in domestic cup competitions as well. So there's minutes rotation issues that you've got to think about when you try and bring any of these in. So, for instance, the only reason that I bought Van Dijk in is I know that Liverpool can't rotate him. He's going to play no matter what. Also, it hasn't helped me for Saliba when I brought him in. So I didn't touch on it earlier when we were talking about teams, but since I brought him in, he's been very indifferent for me, as in I'll get an 8 or a 10 out of him and then he'll be missing. And then the cycle continues. I think when looking for value at the moment, it does go back to Hotz's phrase of minutes, form and fixtures. But it's also about just really trying to look at the underlying data and looking at the fixtures at the moment. Sometimes form is kind of out the window. So we've seen that with the past couple of weeks where you've had the top team lose to the bottom team or draw to the bottom team, etc. So from that perspective, I've got quite an open mind to what I do within my wildcard. You have to learn the lessons of what we've seen for the first half of the season. At the same time, there are still gems out there to go for. And those gems are ultimately who will propel you like a 10 to 12 point swing, for instance, in a game week. And that's invariably what I'll be looking for now.
So I'm curious to listen to your thoughts on this because, and I know we banter about, obviously, you know, you're the second half of the season guy. You usually sort of like steamroller towards the finishing line. Not this year, of course, but usually you do. Sorry, I had to get it in. But I'm curious to sort of see. I'm curious to sort of see your approach in terms of, do you sort of switch your mentality in terms of the kind of players you pick for this stage of the season, or do you have the same philosophy from start to finish. So like, are you now looking at, okay, I want to sort of pack my team full of like the big hitters now because they're going to play week in, week out. I'm going for Van Dijks and the Salahs. Like, what's your thought process right now?
Don't really care if they cost a lot of money or they're big hitters unless they're actually hitting big. So, for example, you mentioned Salah. Why would I put Salah in my team? He's done nothing all season. It's too expensive for me to put him in now on the chance. Doesn't make sense if you ask me. You know, some people put him in and he hasn't done nothing. Some people put him in last week and he got 1 goal. But then, you know, you got people 5 million less than him or you know, that got a goal too, got more points than him. So for me, it's a waste of money just putting in players that are expensive for the sake of it. They're not in form, got good fixtures, playing the minutes. Let's stick to that. I don't think that the actual big prices come into it. As for names,
always the enigma, you know. Sorry to interrupt, but you are right. In that is kind of what I was alluding to as well, because like there are a lot of people that are big hitters out there at the moment that are not doing it. Bottom line, and to your point, it's a lot of money for you to spend on a player, and you're only getting returns of one every other week, etc. But to be fair to him, his underlying data is really, really good. It's just he's underperforming against it, big style. But we're in the final 8 games of the season. Can anyone afford to take a punt on him at that price? I'm not sure they can.
The funniest thing is, at some point he'll bag a hat trick, or he'll hit a double, maybe. But that might not happen at the same time because it's game week 29. So, or should I say, you know, it's coming up to game week 30. We know what he's got in him, and at some point he might do it, but he might do it at the point where you're not even expecting him to do it. And I'm not prepared to put him in and then, you know, put all my money in that place.
Do you feel the same way about Palmer?
Well, yeah, because that's why I haven't put him in my team. Look, these are the guys, the people that you're referring to when you're talking about big hitters are the people that are the most expensive in the game. So since we're in midfield, that'll be like Palmer, Salah, Saka. Out of those 3, if I had to pick one, it'll probably be Saka because he looks like he's starting to get the minutes and he looks like he might be first choice on the right again. We're at the business end of the season, so he's going to play. But even he hasn't hit the heights that I would like to see him hitting just yet. So yeah, you can try and get ahead of it with Saka or Salah or whoever you believe may start hitting throughout the rest of the season. But with that money, as much as I like to jump ahead, which I've done with some other players at lower price ranges, I'd prefer to wait when it comes to that sort of money. There's only one person who has been in my team who is priced at that in them areas there, and he's the most expensive person in the game, which is Haaland. And, you know, he started on fire, but in recent weeks he's been trash in regards to points in FPL. And unfortunately for me, this week he was my captain. And again, he did nothing. He's got West Ham this week. Again, he could do nothing against West Ham. West Ham are in decent form. So it's like, it's a tricky one. Like, you know, loads of people are taking him out. People are looking at him and thinking, let's just get rid of him now to make the money. Remember, I put him in early and I've had loads of money if I'd sold him. Now, for me, he's dropped down to 14.4. In the game, he's 14.6. So I bought him at 14.2, I think. So I get 0.2 if I sell him. But if I let him drop to 14.5, that means he drops to 14.1 for me. So then am I just going to hold him through the blank? So, you know, there's all questions to be asked. But in regards to me investing in another expensive player, I just don't see it happening at the moment. And that's just how I feel. But at the same time, you know, I'm trying to, there's risks to be taken. A Palmer, Saka, Salah, it could surprise, it could, like I said, these are top players and they could get big point holes at any time. But I'm talking consistency, it's not been there. So for me, I'm avoiding them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with what you're saying, to be honest with you. I think we've touched on it a few times throughout this sort of, this season, that the real top value players in the game haven't really performed to their price tag, right? And I think that, when we talk about value, we're talking about, if you're priced really high, you've got to kind of like score points according to your value, right? It's no good, being a Salah and only getting one goal. To me, that's not hitting your value. When the other players, like to your point, Hots, who are half the price, also getting a goal or assist. The whole point of having these players in your team is to get those 2 goals and hat tricks and to score consistently week in, week out. And that hasn't been happening for the most part for those high value players. Having said that, obviously, as we sort of get towards the end of the season, there are gambles to be had. But the worry, of course, is for players like Palmer, for instance, is with Chelsea in the FA Cup and the Champions League still, the rotation can still happen. So there's that danger too. But I guess the next thing I want to speak about is sort of how a player's role within the team can change and potentially present itself value for you. I mean, I guess there's been a number of instances that happened this year. We saw Dorgu a few months ago when he had a lot of injuries and he was playing further up the pitch. Are you sort of looking at these little kind of like gems in terms of players who are... Go on, you could say something else.
I always tend to look at these type of players. This season, funny enough, I haven't really acted on it. I suppose where I'm not doing as good as I would normally and how I'd want to, I feel like I've had to focus on different things. But I would say that there's one in particular who I'm sure everyone's thinking of, who's actually, it's a pep roulette, but Nico O'Reilly, being a defender in the game, playing in midfield and starting, scoring in good form. So, he's got my thing in it. Form, minutes, but you can't trust Pep. I think their fixtures are tough coming up. So I'm not too sure. But I'd think if I had an eye on one of them, it would be him right now. Playing in midfield, for City as a defender. Can't really go wrong with that if he plays.
Ark, do you sort of look at these sort of players who, are playing that position and therefore can present some value? I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, it's not necessarily just out of position, right? It's just you have managerial changes throughout the year and they may want to play a player in a different way to how they were before with regards to their role, right? So I think earlier in the season, we had a discussion where I talked about Somerville, for instance. And I said, actually, with Nuno there, Nuno looks like he trusts him to play particular ways. Not in the same way that he had Gibbs White playing, for instance, but in the same way that he had some of his attacking midfielders, his wider men. And ultimately, Somerville looks like that. And for instance, he's one of those players that you'd look at the moment and you'd say he's underpriced, right? So, like, his XG per 90 is quite high. He's got 10 shots in the box over the last 6 games, for instance, and he's involved a lot. So he's like quite a differential. So from that perspective, that's what I mean in terms of looking for a gem or looking at a player that is about to pop. Dewsbury Hall, he falls into the same type of category as well, right? Him, for instance, he's got 36 points in the last 6. I think his XGI is like 2.6 or something along them lines. So he's got high involvement and he's quite balanced as well. It's not that he's got particular routes. He's quite balanced in terms of his bonus points. He's quite a magnet threat, that type of thing. He does get involved in assists and set pieces and so on. So when you take those kind of things into account, you look at it and you say, well, actually, for his money, he's underpriced, but his role, he's quite pivotal in the team. So now when I weigh up, I used to look at Ndiaye mostly because I like Ndiaye on the eye and the fact that he's on pens. But the reality is the way that Everton play, they don't play against low blocks. So somebody like Ndiaye isn't really being an attacking fulcrum for them, right? And actually it's somebody like Dewsbury Hall that is arriving late and that is in the engine room and so on, that is creating more of a problem. Now, then obviously you need to look at him against the fixtures that they've got. But the reality is once he's been fit, he's been kind of fixture proof and he affects the game either way. So those are the kinds of players that I look for. And yes, ultimately, those two, they're underpriced.
He annoyed me, if I'm honest, Dewsbury Hall, because obviously I had him, and then he got injured. So when I had him, it was a differential. It was like similar to when I got Wilson. I've always thought Dewsbury Hall was a decent player, so I knew that he would be good once he settled in at Everton, and he was settling and he was starting to do his thing. And obviously, since he's got injured, I've had bigger fish to fry, so I haven't put him back in. But obviously he's a midfielder in the game, so he's not out of position. But for value, he's one of the best value-wise.
Yep.
I mean, I'm interested to sort of see, just to kind of follow on from that, how you map sort of a price point to sort of what you expect from that individual. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if you've got a player in your team that's 8 million, for example, right? I mean, let's take Wirtz, for example. Like, at this point in the game, would you deem someone like Wirtz overpriced, at the right price, overpriced,
he's
underpriced?
I'd agree. I think he's overpriced as well.
His minutes are not what they need to be. His returns, they lag against his involvement. So he's got a high ceiling, but his price doesn't reflect his output. So you've got to say that he's overpriced. And I would hope that FPL actually look at that next year, because even when he comes back from injury, unless he has a worldie over the next day, his output's never not gonna realise in the way that he needs to justify the kind of money we're talking about.
He'll be around the same price next season. So it's
but possibly. I would agree with you, but like if you took someone like, say, Ekitike, for example, who is playing, okay, who does get a lot of chances, but he's now, I think, 9.1 in the game now. He's a lot of money.
He's overpriced as well. Like many of the Liverpool assets are overpriced at the moment. Even Van Dijk is overpriced. Like, he's good, but the issue is with your defender, can you rely on him just for set pieces? Because they ain't keeping any clean sheets. And he's over 6 million. So in reality, is there another defender that is producing the same kind of points as him over the past 6 weeks, 12 weeks, etc.? Yeah, there are.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, there are, and they're cheaper. So is he overpriced? Yeah, but I suppose he's got that premium club like taxation on him. So that's the reason why obviously he started as he is. And clearly, obviously, if you're pricing for the game before the start of the season, like, you can't not go off of the back of whatever he did last season, right?
Yeah, sure.
So we understand it, and as the game goes on, the FPL community goes into herd mentality, right? So that's the reason why his price has stayed where it is.
But if we tap back into value, for the last 8 or 9 games of the season, are you looking at value now in terms of what they've done or what you believe they can do? Because obviously this is going to be the sort of the crux now of
it's got to be what they can do, right? Like, whatever they've done doesn't matter. As my favourite says, Earl Simmons, it's not about what you heard, it's what you're hearing, right? So it doesn't matter what any of them have done so far this season. It's what are we hearing now? What's their form saying now? That's the only way we're going to make any kind of gains in FPL.
So I guess the next thing I want to sort of discuss is what you both feel is the difference between value and cheapness. So someone that's cheap versus someone who's value. Is it the same thing?
You mean like someone that goes Primark instead of Zara?
Maybe. But
hold on, why are you getting away without answering anything yourself? This guy's just here, just firing out their questions.
To be honest with you, like, I mean, I tend to agree with a lot of what you guys have said, which is very rare for me. But like, I think that there are a lot of players in the game who are massively overvalued, and that's primarily because, you know, and I think Liverpool is a prime example, because obviously they were the champions last year, so a lot of their assets were priced really high on the basis of when they won last year, and they bought a lot of players like, you know, Isak and whatnot, and the expectation of Liverpool was to win the league again, right? So I think their assets were priced very high to begin with. I think a few of them have come back down a little bit, but I think I'm surprised actually that someone like Wirtz hasn't come down further than what he is. That has been a big surprise to me. And I guess he has kind of come back to the mean a little bit, but
actually, that's a good point you've made. He might be a nice price point next season.
He's still, yeah. And it's someone like Foden is another one.
He hasn't even dropped that much, and he's been out.
Yeah, no one had him.
Yeah, he's still over 10 million, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know, someone like,
you both know that I said at the beginning of the season, even when he will get a game, he'll be injured again within a few, because it's just still how he is. I think Newcastle got lucky with him for maybe a season or two at the max. But he's just always going to be injured. And even next season, if they took him down 1 million and he's fully fit and had a great pre-season, I doubt I'll put him in my team.
He's wild though. He's still 3% owned. Set and forget.
Crazy.
Trust me.
But he's meant to be back in April, I think. So
I think he's due to come back before the end of the season. So we'll see. Watch that space.
He won't be in my team.
But yeah, back to the question, guys. I mean, in terms of like, I guess I'll come to you first, Hots. Like, do you look at the value and cheapness as the same, or are they two different things for you?
Well, they're definitely two different things, right? Cheapness and value. It says it in your question. But what you need to do is you need to see where you can get value in cheap players. So, for example, I think I've picked up a few bargains this season price-wise. Like I said, Dewsbury Hall was a very good price. I think I bought him for 4.9 at the time. He was dropping, and then I don't need to explain what he can do. Wilson was another cheap signing. But even if I look at, when everyone's looking at the Sunderland players, I got Mukiele, which is going to be a very good way of me explaining it. You've got him who, I don't know what he is now, I think he's 4.6, but he's got injured, so potentially he could be dropping. But I bought him for 4 mil. He was his centre-back partner. I can't remember his name. Is it something? Yeah, Alderete. He's 4 mil. So some people have him because he was 4 mil still, and Mukiele had gone up. When I sold Mukiele when he got injured or whatever, when he was back, I bought him back for the price he came back for. And when I bought him back in, I didn't regret it. When you look at, Alderete is cheaper, but Mukiele, for his value, that 4.2 I bought him back in for, in comparison to the 4 I could have spent on Alderete, it was a no-brainer that I made the right choice because of all the points he got me. So you have to put value over just being cheap. But, you're going to get some bargains where they might be cheap and give you the value. So you just got to look for value in the cheap player. So like in midfield, Dewsbury Hall was the cheapest and could bring value. In the defence, Mukiele was a bit more than the cheaper alternatives, but he would give you the value for that price range. And that's what you got to do it. You got to do it in ranges. I think you're going to notice money when it comes to the compact period of chips.
Yeah.
That's when you'll notice it.
Yeah.
And that's when it will count. Because all now, when you're, trying to get to game week 31, when there's blanks and people are focusing on having the starting 11, or they're going to free hit potentially, whichever strategy they're going with, there's going to be a time when it's like, okay, you got to use your chips. So it's like, okay, you free hit and then you bench boost. Then there's a blank. Then you're going to use your triple captain, or whatever way around that you're going to do it. You're going to be rotating and changing players within your team. So, for example, you're going to, let's say I take out Haaland, I take out Semenyo, and I take out Gabriel. When I want to get these players back in, am I going to have money in the bank? And if I don't, when I'm selling the players I bought in, is that money going to cover all 3 of them back in if I want those 3 back in? So I think money is still important. I don't think it's changed. I just think that there's been quality players at cheaper prices, which has helped to coast us through the season. But when it comes to crunch time, I think money is still going to have its relevance.
So some interesting takes there. I mean, value obviously is something that we all look for across the board. But look, why don't we get into what we really want to talk about here, which is obviously the upcoming games. Some important games this game week. Some big games. Hots, I mean, what are you focused on in terms of what you're looking out for in this game week? Who are you sort of watching?
Obviously, we're here to talk about FPL, but I've got to be real. As an Arsenal fan, there's a few games that I'm got an eye on. Obviously, I've got my Raya and Gabriel double, so I'll be looking at the Arsenal versus Everton, Moyes versus Arteta. They both got great history together, respect for each other. I look at that game and I think it's a game where, Arsenal can get the 3 points. We'll get the 3 points. Everton are no mugs. And Moyes, in my opinion, has always been a decent manager. Yeah, it should be an interesting game. And it's at a point in the season where a lot of teams are showing a lot of fight. However, Arsenal at home, it's a business end of the season. Can't really afford to mess around right now. I know Everton have got a slight hope of getting into Europe, etc. But I think our fight and drive will be more. So I predict an Arsenal win there. If I was going to throw a random score out, because I've got a double at the back, I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal.
I think this game's dangerous. I think Arsenal probably will win, but I aim at this game as quite a dangerous game for Arsenal because it's one of those games where, it's after the Champions League game. Everton, I think, have the second best away record in the last year. So to your point,
it's mad what sitting in the middle does, isn't it? I earmark this game.
Yeah, I earmark this game because I think this is a dangerous game for Arsenal. Everton are one of those teams that we know that they're going to come to defend and sit in a low block. They're quite a physical team, and Arsenal do overpower a lot of teams. I don't think they have the same advantage over Everton. So I think this is going to be a really tight game. I think Arsenal will come over the line, but this could be one of those really edgy games, 1-0, 2-1 for me personally. What do you think, Art? What's your scoreline? I know you don't predict scorelines, but what's your view in the game?
I think that Arsenal will win, but I do think Everton are very good away. Although they've reversed that recently and finally won at home. But we know what we get with Everton. I don't think there's much to add to what Hots was saying, to be honest. It's more about who your FPL assets in this game. What would you look for to come up with something? One thing that I'm looking at is confirmation on Eze. Clearly, he's got more minutes now because Ødegaard isn't playing. Is he able to convert those minutes into something meaningful to make him become an FPL asset in this final 8 games? I wouldn't imagine that going for defensive assets from Everton this game is the way forwards because I expect there will be goals in the game. But yeah, it's hard. Business end of the season, right? It's a turgid time. And it's just about getting over the line, as Hot says.
I look at it and Barry and Beto, I'm not too worried about them. So, defensively, I think we're, I'm not saying they couldn't score because we know we've had lapses, but I'm not threatened by their threat. So I just see them being defensively strong because they're sort of a good team, but I just see us getting the victory, whether it's pretty football or whether it's a corner or two. I just see it 2-0. But talking about Arsenal, I want to talk about, our so-called arch nemesis. I'll use the words that Ark would like to use when he calls them. In fact, I'll let him say it himself because it's him that calls them that. He knows what I'm talking about. If you could do the honours, please.
Yes, you're going to do the game. Middlesex, no?
Correct. So, yeah, our arch rivals, their way to Liverpool. The way that Spurs have been playing this season, I do not see anything but a Liverpool result in that game. I know there's a few other games that we're going to mention, but, in that relegation battle at the bottom, there's a few interesting games this week. And I feel that Liverpool will beat Spurs, and Spurs are capable of getting a victory. Then they're a team that, they can pull off an odd win here and there. But the form that they've been in and the way that they've been playing, I just don't see a 3-pointer for Spurs. So at the most would be a draw. But I think Liverpool are in a bit of, don't know if I want to say form, but attackingly they've been doing their thing. And Spurs' defence is a mess. They've obviously got defenders out with Romero has been out injured or wherever he's been. Or he might be suspended and he's come back. I'm not too sure. But either way, if he's back, then it's 1 in, 1 out, innit? Because obviously Van de Ven is out. Yeah. My man speaking for me in that. But Van de Ven's out. Then I might as well not speak for the whole show then, innit? If he wants to, he said speak when I'm speaking and not any other time. So when I'm speaking, I want to speak. I don't want a fucking ad-libs.
I said the man's name. What one?
Yeah. I'm speaking to what Art said to me, innit? So I'm responding to that. So me, man saying, okay, cool. But anyway.
I'm trying to help you out, my friend.
I didn't need help. That's what my point was. But anyway, go on. I won't finish what I was saying. Go on, you go to you.
Yeah, I can't see anything other than the Liverpool win here. Tottenham are in the mud right now, and I agree. I think Liverpool for FPL, I think this is about targeting Liverpool forward assets. So if you hold a Szoboszlai, Ekatike, in my case, I've got sort of Gakpo in my team still, which I want to sell him, but I think I'm going to hold on to him for now. Salah as well. These are guys you'd be rubbing your hands together thinking this could be time to cash in. The Spurs have been an absolutely, atrocious mess for a large part.
Do you think it's possible for Spurs to get a result in this game? Guffs?
Yeah, I guess it's possible. I just don't see it. I think that it's not just a case that they've been poor. I think that the manager's tactics, I just don't think it aligns very well with the players he's got. But, look, Liverpool haven't been great this season, and they have dropped points to some of the lower teams in the league. I think Leeds, they dropped points at home to. Sunderland, they dropped points to. Not low league team, but, they have sort of looked unconvincing at times at Anfield, which is rare for them. So there is a chance that Spurs could maybe sneak out a draw, but honestly, I don't see anything other than a comfortable win. It would be 3-1, 3-0 I'm going for.
I'm not sure that it's going to be a landslide because I do think that Liverpool are not at the races at the best of times. They've got defensive lapses in them. I also think that Solanke is the player that is showing that he's got the bit between his teeth. He's at least summons in the war cries, etc. at the moment, which you would kind of need when you're in the position that they are in. So it's an interesting match to me. I do think Liverpool will win, but I think it might be 3-2.
Okay, so the game that I'm looking at this game week is what I call the "it was all good a week ago" game, whereas Man U versus Villa. A few months ago, Villa were flying high, looking up at the title, and Man United were floundering under Amorim. And now here we are with the reverse, right? Where Man United are now looking at securing third place and Villa are struggling to sort of hang on to Champions League spot. So this is a very interesting game for many reasons. In terms of FPL assets, I think that it's a case of Villa's central assets versus Man United's killers. And, it's going to be an interesting game and I'm hoping for Rodgers to sort of come alive this game. Man United do struggle when they had to be on the front foot. They tend to do better when they have to sit back and counter-attack with their pacey players. When they're the ones having to sort of initiate attacks, they can be vulnerable in transitions. And I think Rodgers does thrive in those kind of games when he can sort of run in between the lines. So, and obviously they've got Watkins who can kind of run in between the gaps as well. So I think it could be a really sort of open game. I think this game to me looks like a 2-2 game for me, Desmond. I think both teams will score goals. I don't think either back line is particularly secure. If there's going to be a winner, it'll be Man United, but I just fancy a draw in this game 2-2. Hearts, what do you think?
I think that Villa's got a potential to do an upset. They've been not playing and performing well, and I'm sure Emery's going to be livid at himself. I think that United have had a great run since Carrick have come in. I think it was, no losses, 1 draw until they've lost. Now they've lost. I think they got a potential for a reality check on, Carrick's great achievements at the beginning of his time at United. And maybe there's going to be another defeat on their list of games. So I'm going to go for Villa victory. I'm not sure about prediction on scores, but I was about to swear, still trying to keep it professional. Rodgers better score, if that's the case. So I've still got him currently.
Ark?
We'll keep it a buck. I don't like either of these teams. So all I do is look for their assets. Obviously, Rodgers is what he is, but I think that Watkins could have something to say in this game. With regards to United, it's always the same. Everything goes through Fernandes. But obviously, Mbeumo and now maybe Sesko, whether he starts or not, doesn't matter. He seems to be able to get a goal. Yeah, definitely not a game for defensive assets from either, unless you're going for an attacking fullback, for say. Prediction-wise, I'd imagine it's a draw. I don't see any of them being that better than the other to really run away with it. But United are at home, so if I was going for a winner, I'd go for them. But I think it'll be a draw.
And what game are you looking at this week? Game week? Is there any sort of game you got your eye on?
Yeah, I've been looking at West Ham City more because of the conundrum of assets amongst both teams, I guess. So it's a typical attack v defence type game. Clearly, with West Ham, you'll get their mid to low defensive block. They'll try and transition through their wide players. We've spoken about one of them, Somerville. Another one is Bowen, wherever he plays. He's always having some kind of effect from a West Ham perspective. And for City, what we know is obviously they will do what they usually do, which is half space overloads, cutbacks from wide areas, second phase attacks, that kind of thing. It's whether West Ham's defence can hold out against that. The reality is you would expect to know. If it becomes a straight gunfight, you would expect City to be able to win through with that. So, yeah, your main assets that you're looking at, like I said, Somerville, Bowen. Somerville's quite a differential. I know a couple of people are looking at him from a captaincy point of view as well, which is bold, to say the least. Then obviously what you've got is City, you've got Haaland, you've got Semenyo as well. Semenyo is probably the differential in this one because his drivers, he's got a lot of touches in the penalty area. He's got a lot of shot volume as well. I expect City to win. But I think that we'll see a valiant effort from West Ham. But I'm expecting it to be 1-3.
The only thing that I can really say that might deter me from saying the same result as you, Ark, is that Man City play after Arsenal, don't they? So I guess if Arsenal do win, which, I hope they do, what kind of mental state will Man City be in? The pressure obviously will be immense for them to win that game against West Ham, which could be a factor. You don't know. Having said that, I think it's not a great matchup for West Ham, and I think Man City probably will win in the end. It's
a game that I was hoping would come up because obviously when I was talking about Liverpool Spurs, it's a dog fight down there. Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Spurs, and if West Ham was to pull off a little draw, not saying it's likely, but as an Arsenal fan, I'm hoping that they can pull off something, and I don't think it can be a victory. So I'm hoping that they can pull off a draw. Then, obviously, if Liverpool do go and spank Spurs, then that means that West Ham will go above them. So it'll be interesting to see the outcomes of these games because by this time next week, we could be looking at Spurs in the bottom 3. People are like, oh yeah, they're going to go down, they're going to do this. But I think even if Spurs go into the bottom 3, they've got the fixtures to come out of it, if I'm being honest. I'm not one of these biased fans that just chat shit for the sake of it. But obviously, as an Arsenal fan, I'd love Spurs to go down. I think they could drop into it this week because Liverpool are definitely my favourite to win. So with West Ham, if they can pull off a draw. They've been strong defensively. I see City scoring. So it's just about whether West Ham can break their defence or not. And if they can, they might be able to get a little 1-1. But in reality, I think Man City potentially wins that, potentially 2-0. Could even be 2-1 if West Ham do. You know, West Ham have been in good form and they are fighting. And when you're fighting, if you look at all the teams fighting, Wolves and all these teams, they're causing problems to everyone. So there's a bit of hope there. But yeah, if I'm just being direct, I would say City wins still.
And I guess we can go on sort of captain choices. It's a tough one this week. I mean, obviously, you look at the projections, it's the usual faces sort of on the list. Again, the Salahs, the Haalands, you know, we know the names already at this point. But who are you looking at this game week? I mean, who is a safe pick, I guess, is the question. And sort of who are you going for? I guess I start with you, Ark. Who are you looking at?
There are no safe picks anymore. With regards to who I'm looking at, that's a trade secret. Right now. That said,
Thiago, sorry, go on. You go on.
Is that what you're looking to do? Do you own him?
I'm just, you know, just guessing what your secret is, but
I don't think you should guess. Hasn't worked out well this season. But that said, I don't know. I think we're in that period of differential captains that everybody will be going for something a little bit different because of the predictions, etc., that I've given for the United Aston Villa game. I won't be going for Bruno, but he's obviously somebody that many people will look at. I have Haaland, and at some point I've got to captain him again, right? You can't have a 14 point whatever million player and you don't captain him. That said, if I was looking at others, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but like I said, his underlying data, and his, in this instance, is Salah. His underlying data is very good. He would be a good captaincy choice from my perspective if I had him, especially given the history that he's got with Middlesex. And there are a few others, I guess. Like obviously we can see that the points projection thing is interesting. You guys know what my thoughts are around Saka. I love him as a player, etc., but often he is not necessarily doing what he needs to do from an FPL point of view. But again, he is somebody that he's about to pop. Like his underlying data is good. It's almost elite. It's just his output hasn't caught up with it at the moment. So he doesn't show any signs of regressing. So at some point it's got to come up. And yes, from an Arsenal point of view, as I do support them, I hope that it is this weekend. But yeah, from my perspective, I can't look too much further than the City boys that I've got in my team. What about you, Guffs? You keep asking everybody else. What are you doing?
I'll ask questions here.
You're going to be Pedro, yeah?
Hearts,
You
what are you
in your
saying?
ear like say somebody's listening to that.
Listen, I asked questions, my friend. Hearts.
Yeah, you already
Who are you
asked
going
it.
He's been silent. You going to talk or are you going to stare at me?
Who are you talking to? He asked you a question, so are you really forcing that you're the host so no one can ask a question? Is this the ignorance you want to come with? Because, cool. So, I thought you was bantering. I didn't know this.
Ignorance.
Do you want me to answer the question or not? So, I would say that Haaland is someone that I would be questioning because at the end of the day, I've gone with him for the last few weeks and he's flopped. Potentially, he could come through and deliver. I can't rule him out, even though he hasn't been in the greatest of forms. I was looking at Harry Wilson for this game week, but obviously he hasn't come back from injury, so he's not a guaranteed starter. So it's a bit of a shame because I wanted to do him as a differential. I honestly don't know who I'm going to be captaining this week or what I'm even going to be doing this week because I've made no transfers so far. But, you know, as Ark said, the City boys are a decent team to target going at West Ham. I think that the Liverpool players are good players to target going at scum. So yeah, it's players from City or players from Liverpool that you really need to be targeting as captain. But there's differentials all around, so
yeah, I'm a bit stuck this week. I don't know who I'm going to go for. I think Thiago is a strong candidate for me at the moment. They are home to Burnley, and he's in great form. He scored 2 against West Ham in the FA Cup. Brentford are a very good home team. Burnley are horrible on the road. Although they've looked a bit better in the recent weeks, but you'd have to think that he's gonna get something in this game. Thiago. I don't own any offensive assets from City other than Haaland. Yeah, I just don't know about Haaland at this point in time. I kind of largely agree with what's already been said, really. I think Liverpool assets are the ones that I would target if I had them. I've got a couple. I've got Gakpo and I've got Szoboszlai, but I don't think any of them are kind of captain worthy. I think it's kind of a toss-up between sort of maybe Haaland, Bruno and Thiago for me. That's the 3 I'm looking at, really. Obviously, João Pedro is in great form, albeit he hasn't got the best fixture this game week, but if we're looking at sort of at form, fixture, and that kind of stuff, then he's someone you got to kind of take in consideration right now because he's flying right now.
Who did he score a hat-trick pass last week?
Aston Villa. Away to Villa. So, he came off the bench against Wrexham. He's someone that obviously he's feeling himself right now. So he's someone to
yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, he played like 10 minutes in the game and scored a goal. I think the point I'm making is that he's obviously in that point where he's feeling very confident. So,
well, yeah, he's in form and he's got the minutes.
Like Liam Rossino, yeah? He said that he's in the same bracket as Haaland and Mbappe.
Rossino's smoking a good shit.
You know what? There's a little shout for a couple of the Bournemouth players as well. Like they shouldn't be slept on as they're playing Burnley. Evan Nielsen, he's got decent underlying data in terms of the amount of touches and shots that he's had in the penalty area over recent weeks. And then obviously you've got the differential that is Rayan, right? So again, if you're looking for a differential and you're chasing upside, like there could be potentials for anybody that is out there that's got those kind of players or they're willing to make those gambles.
So yeah, I mean, another game week, guys. We move on. I'll keep on chipping away at the points and hopefully get some more games on hots next game week. We'll see what happens. But yeah, until next week.
Truth be told, when I wonder what the